The golden age of agencies being the predominantly favorite business model in 2026 is coming to an end. And it's not because agencies as a whole suck. It's not because you as an agency owner is incompetent. It's because of the structure of the agency is what I like to call a hollow engine. So the agency model's fatal flaw, one is that labor is directly correlated to value. So when all labor stops, all value from the agency also stops. You're also not creating any actual assets that create equity. So past work from a previous client does not give you a future advantage. Yes, it might help you create SOPs and things like that, but every new client that you onboard starts from zero in their account, right? Yes, you have assets and things that help speed up the process, but results do not arrive quicker just because you've worked with other clients. And on top of everything, you are not compounding anything. You have no IP that compounds on itself. So success creates strain on you as the founder and on the business model as a whole. It does not improve the strength, right? So the founder trap here is that the more revenue and the more clients you have, the more dependent the agency business model is on you as the founder. So this didn't used to be such a structural instability until the last few months, where the market is creating this instability and highlighting it in great detail. What used to take 5 years now can happen in 18 months, 12 months, etc., because of the advancement of technology. So your clients mature faster, they learn faster, and they outgrow you faster because there is such a saturation of information on how to do your exact service that you do for them in the market, as well as the fact that AI has become the great leveler, right? Before, your expertise and your experience and the time in the market was your moat. But now, anyone can go to ChatGPT, they can go to Claude, which is my favorite, and it can have them scrape the internet, do all of the strategy, write the ads for you, analyze the data on how to improve. They can genuinely go from novice to pretty decent or good enough to not have to pay you $5,000 a month, $3,000, whatever that is, because they can learn it in 6 months or so. So when what you know is no longer enough, how you execute at scale is actually what matters. The market has also become more sophisticated. So now your clients know exactly what you're going to ask for. They can spec your deliverables themselves, and they can compare you to any SaaS, any automation platform, even other agencies on an equal scale. And they also expect real-time visibility and control. There's never been more of a time of delay of gratification being the last thing ever wanted. No one wants to wait 2 weeks to onboard and launch their first ad campaign. No one wants to wait a month to see SEO results. The expectation of working with an agency needs to beat what they can do themselves using all of these tools and all of the information at their fingertips. And all of this has created pricing pressure, because when AI can do 60% of your work, clients will expect that percentage in lower fees. So you're competing with offshore teams that charge an absolute fraction. Freelancers that use AI to work faster, they're still charging less. Platforms that charge $50 a month that seem to guarantee exactly the results you are giving them, right? And that creates this accelerating exit pattern where it goes through these stages. Phase one is you acquire clients. So the client hires you for your expertise and execution. The phase two is, over time of working with you, your client's perceived value of your service degrades. This is a 6 to 10 month period where over the course of working with you and all this kind of stuff, they're still getting inundated by content, by ads, and all these things that are trying to sell them your replacement. So phase three is, after this happens, right, they churn, and they either leave you for a bigger agency that can do more after you have given them results to be able to pay more for a better agency. They bring it in-house with the junior person plus AI, because they want to be adopting and being ahead and being on the technologically advancing curve, or they'll switch to a cheaper provider that offers them the same thing, but at a better cost to them that is more incentivizing for them. So after these three phases happens, you have nothing to show for what you did with them. You don't have any recurring revenue. You have no asset built on their information. You have no compounding value from that relationship. You could just have maybe a case study. And at this point, everybody has case studies. It doesn't make you unique whatsoever. So what agencies are doing, what top level agency guys are doing, is they are switching to a different model, which is the infrastructure operator model. This is where you still sell results, but the results flow through infrastructure that you own and install in every new client's business. What you need to understand about this is that your offer doesn't change. You're not changing what you sell to clients. You're still selling the same results that they want. We'll run your meta ads and drive qualified leads. We'll audit your sales team and improve close rates. We'll create content that ranks and drives traffic. The shift of the model is how you're actually delivering on those results, right? So before we can deliver those results, we need to install our insert proprietary system into your business. This is what allows us to achieve repeatable outcomes that we promise, right? So how this works in practice. If you're a meta ads agency, your offer is unchanged. We'll create all your ad creative and run your meta campaigns to generate qualified leads at your target CPA. The delivery is what has a new approach. So the first step is you're installing your creative performance system, which is, a dashboard that scores creative concepts before launch, predicts performance, tracks what's working. You're installing that. Their team logs in daily to review scores, and you still create and run the ads. The result is a system that becomes embedded in their decision making when they're going to launch or create new ads, right? So they got exactly what they wanted, which is ads and leads. But now your infrastructure is how they make creative decisions. They're depending on it. Guess what happens when they churn from your done for you or done with you service? They are still going to depend on the information that your system is telling them and making them consult before they even go to launch an ad from there on out. Sales consulting, offer unchanged. We'll audit your sales team and implement improvements to increase your close rate by 20+%, right? Same offer. The delivery is what is new. You're installing your sales intelligence system, tracks all your key metrics, identifies bottlenecks, surfaces coaching opportunities in real time. Their managers will use it every day for team reviews. You are still doing the audit, the coaching, the training. You're just using your system that makes it 10 times easier for you to actually deliver on results. And you're ingraining it in their brains that the only way that they are continuing to track and monitor their sales team in real time is by using your infrastructure. Another example here is a content marketing agency, right? The offer is unchanged. We'll create SEO optimized content that ranks and drives organic traffic to your site. The delivery, shocker, new approach. You're installing your content engine platform, editorial calendar with SEO scoring, brief generation, performance tracking, automated distribution. Their team manages calendar and reviews briefs while you still do the research, you're still writing the content, and you're still publishing the content. The system is orchestrating the entire content operation. So they are getting the content and rankings that they wanted, but your platform runs their content strategy. If you're noticing a trend here, the infrastructure helps you deliver on your service by making the work that you're doing 10 times less because you are leveraging this system, right? So the positioning language is when selling, you're saying we can absolutely deliver X results. Here's how we work before we start delivering on whatever you're selling. We install our system into your operations. This is the foundation that allows us to consistently deliver those results. Installation takes 2 to 3 days. Then we spend a few days training your team to use it, ensuring it's embedded into your workflow. Then we begin blank, right? So it's not a separate upsell. It's a prerequisite for delivering the results they already want. And it's embedding in their brain that the only way to get those results is to use this platform, whether they're doing it with or without you, right? What this looks like in practice. A performance marketing agent. We don't just run ads. We install your proprietary performance stack, attribution system, testing framework, automated reporting dashboards, creative workflow system, budget optimization models. The infrastructure becomes their performance engine. Removing the infrastructure means breaking their business when it comes to this angle, right? So the key difference is in the traditional agency model, we'll run your marketing. Your value is the time and labor you are spending doing your work. With the infrastructure operator, We're installing the system that runs your marketing. So the value that you're giving them is the system, which remains whether you are operating it or not, plus your expertise in operating it, right? So why do clients pay more for this? Because you're not selling hours, you are selling a proprietary system they cannot build themselves. They are paying you for installation that integrates it into their operations. They're paying for ongoing access to a maintained, improving asset. And then they are paying you for strategic guidance on system optimization. They are not buying your time. They're buying operating leverage. And the key thing about this, one of the best parts about this model, is that the buyer's remorse is completely negated by running this, right? So traditional agency will pay. They will spend a week onboarding. They will spend a week waiting for any kind of result to come in. And their anxiety is building this entire time. And they are thinking the entire week, 2-week period, did I make the right decision? They're going to be looking for issues. The result is you have buyer's remorse, refund requests, you have canceled contracts, you have people that just go, hey, I think we're just going to bring this in-house and we're just going to keep trying it ourselves. The infrastructure operating model, the day after the client pays, you are on a call with them installing your infrastructure. They're immediately learning the system, exploring dashboards, seeing the framework. This is an instant, massive boost in ROI perception. They paid for transformation. You gave them transformation immediately. They're not waiting. There's no anxiety. There's instant value, and it creates more momentum, right? And that's due to the fact that there is this 3-layer value stack where your old service, the client pays only for labor, and when the relationship ends, your revenue from that account goes to 0. The evolution of that is you now have 3 layers of monetization. You have your high tier installation. This is a premium upfront fee for the installation. Then they are paying for your strategic oversight. This is the retainer. This is your regular agency service. And then they have the infrastructure subscription. So if and when they churn, your system will remain in their workflow. This is why top-level agency owners are beginning to get into the SaaS or infrastructure play, because past work will compound. You're building something that retains equity even if the client churns, and that creates moats. So you build a switching cost where if a client churns from you, if they want to churn then from the actual infrastructure, it means not only rebuilding their operations from scratch, it means completely foregoing all of the historical data that would now be living in your infrastructure up to this point. Their team is trained on your infrastructure, so if they remove from their workflow, they now have to retrain their team on what to use instead. Your system is still connected to all their other tools, and they invested time learning it from day one. So all of those things create such a massive resistance and risk to churning from the infrastructure that they genuinely won't do it. The other thing is the install commitment effect. So a traditional agency is payment, they wait, they have an onboarding call, they wait, and then they have first deliverable, which goes back to what we just spoke about, which is the buyer's remorse and second guessing. The infrastructure solution completely negates that, where it immediately gives the purchase a ROI perception. So there is no more buyer's remorse, there's no more waiting. By the time you have your first strategy call, they've already invested hours into your system and they're committed before you even start the service work. On top of that, you have the compounding engine, which is with client 1, you build the core system out. You've already built the infrastructure, but you haven't actually simulated it with real data yet with a client. The first client takes 100 hours. Let's guess that's a lot of time. Most likely will be less. The second client is you install it and you're just customizing and tinkering. The third client, you're customizing again. By the 10th client, you've refined the process of installation so much that you are doing 80% less in delivery time, even with the same revenue per client. And that is what we mean by creating leverage. And what actually creates value for a potential buyer is your infrastructure becomes an asset because it survives churn. It is transferable. It improves with every single use case, and it's not tied to your personal capacity for work. And this is why acquirers pay so much for SaaS companies, because it has nothing dependent on the actual people running the business, right? So this is why With a infrastructure operator model where you have a hybrid between agency service and SaaS layer, you can get 5 to 6, sometimes even 10x your EBITDA instead of a 2 to 3x. If you have ever tried to sell your agency, this makes sense to you. So what do we mean by infrastructure? It's not just a software. We're not starting a software company. We're not a startup. We're creating an operating architecture. This is workflows and automations, data flows and integrations, decision models plus guardrails on those logic models, and monitoring and feedback loop. And this is how you make your operating architecture part of how their business runs on a day-to-day basis. So, content agency example, you're still selling the SEO optimized content that drives traffic. The infrastructure you're installing might be the calendar system with SEO score. It might be content brief generation. It might be multi-stage review and approval process with a Kanban board or something like that. It could be performance tracking data. It could be automated content distribution, right? To where you are still delivering on the service. You are still writing the content, but their team is using your system daily to manage everything around that part of their business. The infrastructure isn't replacing your service, it's how you're delivering it. The e-commerce example, we optimize your store, grow revenue. Maybe the infrastructure you are installing is real-time margin and inventory sync. Maybe it's automated price optimization, customer segmentation engine, retention campaign automations, LTV prediction, monitoring. You're still doing the optimization work, but your system now runs their business operations, pricing, segmentation, retention. When you eventually, and it is an absolute that you will have to eventually step back and they will churn, the system keeps running. That's the subscription. Another example here is paid media. You're still running profitable ad campaigns that hit CPA targets. You are installing attribution tracking foundations, creative testing frameworks, budget allocation models, performance monitoring dashboards, and automated reporting and alerts, right? Any of those would work. You are still creating ads and managing campaigns, but their team is logging into your dashboards every single day. They are using your attribution system, and they are relying on the logic of your infrastructure for their testing framework, right? So again, the service runs on your infrastructure. What infrastructure is not is a shared login to third-party tools. It's not a white label of Go High Level. It's not templates you customize every single time you have a client. It's not a process documentation. It is not something you rebuild from scratch each time. It is a proprietary system that you own, would be expensive and or difficult for them to replace, improves with scale and iterations, and is a prerequisite for delivering your service. And this changes everything about the economics. So, with an agency, your revenue is service-based only, dependent on your labor. Your retention is typically 6 to 12 months on the high end if you are a good agency. And when the client leaves, you make no money from them at all anymore. The agency EBITDA, if you are at scale, should hover around 20% is pretty low. It's probably like 20 to 35% here. The multiple is 2 to 3x on a good day. And if you are at $3 million in annual revenue, your valuation will sit somewhere around 1.8 to maybe 2.5 million in exit value. And that's assuming someone even wants to buy it. That's just the math. The whole process of is someone actually going to purchase it is an entirely different conversation. So with an infrastructure operator, you have 3 phases of revenue, which is right, your installation upfront, it's your actual service, and then it is your subscription service after they churn from your done with you or done for you service. Your retention stretches to multi-year, and client matures, meaning they churn, they are still paying for your infrastructure. Your EBITDA margin here can be as low as 30%, but typically it will be up towards 50 to 60%. Your multiple on something like this, because of the MRR, the IP, the infrastructure, the software operating system that you are building, you get a multiple of 5 to 6x. And valuation at the same revenue of an agency doing 3 million, you have a worth of 5.4 million. Not to mention people actually would like to buy this business of yours. The same revenue, 3x the enterprise value, because you have a better LTV, because you have 3 revenue phases. You have higher margins because you're leveraging the asset. It allows you to reduce headcount in your own company. You have stronger retention based on the embedded dependency that businesses create over the course of actually working with you. And you have a higher multiple because it's durable and transferable. We haven't even talked about cash collected and cash collection cycles and all these things. I'm sure you can understand how it impacts those as well. So how do I transition from an agency to this infrastructure operator model? So the first thing you need to do is extract your operating logic. What is in your head that makes clients succeed? That is the infrastructure, right? So the core problem with the agency is that your expertise lives in your head as implicit knowledge. You make hundreds of micro decisions every day based on pattern recognition that you can't and or haven't articulated yet. When a client asks, how do you do this? You struggle to explain because it's intuitive to you. But that implicit knowledge is your infrastructure. You just need to make it explicit. So we are going to extract that from your brain. 3-layer extraction method. Layer 1 is the diagnostic framework. So how do you identify what's broken or what needs to be optimized? What do you look at first when evaluating a new client? What metrics tell you if something is working or not? What patterns do you see that clients miss? What are your red flags that indicate deeper problems? An example here. Performance marketer might have a diagnostic sequence. First, you check attribution setup, then you analyze creative fatigue, then review audience segmentation, then examine funnel drop-offs. That sequence and what you check at each stage becomes a diagnostic workflow in your infrastructure. Layer 2 is the decision logic. So what rules govern your decisions and actions? So what thresholds trigger different actions? If X drops below Y, you are doing Z. What is your prioritization framework? Fix A before B always. What trade-offs do you make and when? What are your always and never rules? Example here. Sales consultants might have rules like never optimize for close rate until you've fixed qualification. Always track talk to listen ratios. If close rate drops below 20%, audit discovery process before anything else. These if-then rules become automated guardrails that you are installing into your system here. The layer 3 is the execution method. So how do you actually implement changes and improvements? What's your step-by-step process for common tasks? What dependencies must be in place before you proceed? How do you validate if something worked? What's your iteration cadence and feedback loop? So an example here could be a content strategist method, keyword search, content brief with SEO scoring, first draft, internal review, client review, publish, track for 30 days, optimize based on data. Each of these individual steps has checklists, templates, quality gates. That becomes the workflow automation. So extraction exercise for you to practice after this is pick your most successful client outcome from the last 90 days. Now work backwards. So what did you diagnose was the core problem? What decisions did you make to address it? What was your exact execution sequence? What would have broken if you skipped a step? Write this out as if teaching someone else to replicate it. That document becomes the blueprint for what will eventually become your infrastructure. Now, the second phase here is you're building it once. You're building one system adapted per deployment. This becomes your asset. And this becomes the reason you install leverage into your own business because you're not increasing labor time per client. And then you need to shift your positioning a bit, right? So you're not changing what you sell. You're changing how you explain the delivery of that. The old service and the old positioning was, hey, we're just going to run your meta ads and optimize per performance. Is something that every single business owner looking for that has heard. Your new positioning is a service plus infrastructure hybrid. So we'll run your meta ads and optimize for performance to deliver the results you need. First, we install our creative performance system into your ad operations. Installation takes 2 to 3 days. Then we train your team on how to use it and make sure it's embedded in your workflow. Then we begin to launch campaigns. This is absolutely crucial and necessary for anyone because it creates a standardized and systematic process to make sure that your ads are running correctly and they're being optimized per performance the way that they should be. If you don't have these, human error comes into play, yada, 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 makes you way more unique and makes you have a higher perceived value. So infrastructure is non-negotiable. This is how we work. This is what allows us to deliver consistent results. It's their advantage that you're using the system. And the installation becomes first. So before we begin X, we install infrastructure. This is what they want. The core promise does not change. The infrastructure is the delivery mechanism, and it's not a separate product. It's just how you do the work they are hiring you for. So instead of just delivering results, right, you are embedding. So installation is integrating into their daily apps. Their team uses it daily. Removing it is breaking their business. So the reason this is so important is because of the psychology of the immediate embedding. You close the gap where buyer's remorse lives. Day after payment, they receive infrastructure access. You do a full onboarding. You walk them through everything. They explore the dashboards. They're clicking through workflows. They're seeing the architecture, learning the system. And this is before you even start actually delivering on the service. By the time you start the service work, they have already invested cognitive energy into your infrastructure. They're embedded, committed. There is no remorse. There is only momentum. So you need to design for 3 phases in your service, right? Which is phase 1, week 1, installation. You can charge 10K up to 25K for this installation. If you have a extremely highly sophisticated ICP and you are selling to multi-million dollar companies, just the installation fee can reach up to $100,000. But that is completely dependent on who you are selling to. You cannot just switch to this and go, hey, like 100K for installation, it's not going to work, right? So timeline, 2 to 3 days for full installation, full onboarding, etc. from date of payment. It shouldn't take 2 to 3 days to do this. It's just within 2 to 3 days of paying, they should have full installation customized to their operations. You've set up, integrated, trained their team, and embedded it into their workflow. This is critical for phase 2 because then you are running your service on top of that. So they get instant value day after they pay. They are immediately guaranteed access to the infrastructure, and they have momentum. Phase 2 is what you already do right now. This is your actual service. This is the retainer you're currently running for your clients right now. You do this still, nothing changes. Phase 3 is where the golden fucking nugget lies. This is where the magic actually happens to go with all of your metrics, customer acquisition cost, LTV, all these things, and valuation. It's the post-churn revenue that you retain after they don't want to do done for you, done with you services. So revenue math here is, let's say a client pays 15K for installation, then they're paying 10K a month for a year, and then they pay 2K a month for the next 24 months, right? The total revenue per client is now $183,000 versus a typical client right now. If you charge 10K a month for 12 months, which is 120K. So you have a 50% higher LTV, and the subscription continues indefinitely. So this is you now, the before, where you sell labor, revenue is tied to active work, the client outgrows you, and you go back to zero revenue from that account. You are trapped in delivery, meaning having to troubleshoot issues. You're the one putting fires out. You're the one communicating with clients in Slack. Your enterprise value is absolutely low versus after you have transitioned into an infrastructure operator business model, you are selling infrastructure backed results. Your revenue comes in 3 phases. If your client matures, they continue paying for the subscription or licensing to your architecture, to your infrastructure. And instead of you, the founder, being trapped in delivery, you've already taken all of the unique proprietary knowledge that you know and put it into the system. Therefore, you are not trapped in all of the day-to-day bullshit tasks that you have to do. And because of that, because of all those things, your enterprise value is 3 to 5x higher. This evolution is not optional, because if you don't, you stay on the perpetual hamster wheel of client acquisition, acquire, service, churn, revenue drops to zero, acquire, service, churn, and you're running in this loop to where if you have a 10% churn, every 10 months you have completely cycled through your entire client base. The more work you do equals more stress, not profit. If you're at the point where evolution is even possible for you, because you can't do this at 10K a month, 20K, 30K, you typically need to be at least above 50K a month to make this viable for you as a business. You have a 3 to 5x higher enterprise value, revenue compounds and survives churn, and the business can run without you, which means that work gets easier as you scale and you are constantly building an asset that you can sell. So Agencies that will make this shift in the next 12 to 24 months will absolutely dominate their categories. The ones that will wait are competing on price against AI and offshore labor because you are being commoditized every single day. The question isn't whether to evolve, it's whether you are going to actively participate into the evolution or just be forced into it. Anyone can use Claude nowadays and basically get 80 to 90% of the value that you would provide as a agency. You need to have a unique moat and you need to have something that survives churn. This is how you integrate your exit layer that allows you to not only evolve the business, but give you an out in 5 to 10 years. Right now, agencies are being compressed by both the market and the client. They are trapped in the middle, and there's no way out besides changing the business model, besides evolving. So don't spend the next 5, 6, 7 years building something that you can't sell, that you can't exit, that you need to hopefully bank enough cash in the bank from running the agency to where you can just completely pivot to something else. Build something that lasts, build something you can sell, build something that you can actually be fucking proud of in 5 to 10 years. This is the exit layer. If you want to learn more about this, I'll put a link in the description to a 97-page thesis document that I wrote that goes extremely in depth about the market conditions and what is actually the reasoning behind this being the no-brainer evolution to agencies. If you want to take advantage of your small period of time before most agencies actually see the writing on the wall and begin to make this change, you can also book a call with me and we can map out how your infrastructure layer and evolution would look like over the next 90 days. Thank you. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.